Have you ever thought about the struggle to accept your fibromyalgia and then all something changes and you find yourself all the way back in the beginning and maybe you lose out on the ability to go out with somebody else that you had planned and really looked forward to, but your fibromyalgia said, no, you're not. Have you ever gotten so angry that all you want to do is throw things because you feel like you've lost another part of yourself? You've wanted to cry. You just keep asking yourself, why am I back here? Why do I feel like I'm starting over? You may not actually be going backwards. What you're doing is going through the cyclic nature of the 5 stages of grief. Most people associate grief with death when somebody in your family dies or when a friend dies. The fact is, anything can trigger in the stages of grief, whether it be all of a sudden having a new illness, losing another part of your identity. It's about marriage, divorce. It's about having a baby. Maybe you lose that baby. All of it can trigger the stages of grief. If you have a baby, what you might regret is losing your freedom. Even as much as you wanted that child, you still lost something. And it's going to take 18 years to get it back. You lose your independence. They all appear in fibromyalgia because the illness takes away a lot of things that we took for granted when we were kids. The fact is, we lose the ability to have as much energy as we used to. Now, frankly, I look at our dog and I'm like, oh my God, can she share her energy? Because God knows I would love to have it. I would love to be able to get up and run, but I lost that ability back in 94. And you lose so many things, to include self-confidence. And this is one of those things that triggers a loss in your system. I have had a lot of things happen in my life, and I've dealt with the stages of grief a lot because between everything I've dealt with, I'm constantly having to go through that cycle. And as time goes by, I get better at going through it. But it's still extremely difficult. There are 5 commonly discussed stages within this diagram. Yes, it's very psychologically based, but I'm trying to discuss it in a way that you can understand. The very first one is denial. And my God, we all go through that. When we first start getting sick and we just say, oh, I'm just tired. Oh, I'm just this. Oh, I'm just that. We don't want to accept the fact that we may have to change our methods. And yet that's exactly what has to happen. But we are stuck in this cycle of denial that we don't want to change. We want to be who we thought we were going to be. We want to be that worker. We want to be that person that is there for people. I mean, it's just part of our nature, especially as women. And God knows fibro hits us more often than it does men. There are still the rarities. There are still quite a few men that have it, but it is still about 90% women. And we are the caretakers for the most part. Yes, that is our role in society. It's to take care of the kids. It's to do the homemaker stuff. It's what our culture teaches us. And we also have our passions. We tend to refuse help. We tend to start ignoring symptoms just because they're not what we want them to be. That's not a bad thing. It really isn't, because there are times when we do have to push. The problem we have is finding that limit. And denial keeps masking that limit. I mean, when you look at my military background, we're taught never to say anything about our physical condition. And if you're a type A personality, again, you got the same conditioning in your body. It's what you want to do. You want to help people. You want to be that go-getter, that person that is reliable. And for a long time, that traditional teaching really caused me to stay in that denial cycle. It's like, I refuse. I will not accept the fact that I've got a medical issue that is causing problems. I'm going to ignore it. I'm going to just keep going because that's what I'm taught to do. And that's exactly what you do not want to do with fibro. We look at this and we see our changes as a weakness, and they're not. In fact, in many ways, us still being able to work with what we deal with proves how strong we are. But that does not stop us from denying the fact that our lives have changed. Our bodies have changed. However, I do want to state this one thing. Hope is not denial. Trying different treatments, believing in yourself enough to try different methods, whether it be medication, whether it be treatment options such as chiropractic, alternative medicines, all of this does not constitute as denial. It constitutes as trying to work with our bodies. We're trying to improve our health through any means necessary to try and at least dial down the pain so we can function. That is hope. However, every single time something fails, that triggers something else in our stages of grief, and that's anger. Anger is a second stage of grief. We are so angry that we all of a sudden can't do what we want to do. We are angry because the doctors can't give us solid answers. We're angry because we can't stop feeling what we're feeling. Whether it be angry at the doctors, our family members who don't seem to understand, and we can't communicate it correctly enough that they can. Because, quite frankly, trying to understand what somebody who's dealing with fibro feels is impossible unless it's somebody else who's dealt with it. They can watch, they can sympathize, but they can't understand. And that's not really a failure of theirs because they can't feel what we feel. And we can get angry at them. Heck, we can get angry at ourselves because why is my body saying no? I must admit, I can't tell you how often over the years I just say, I really hate my body. I really do. And I still do to this day because, quite frankly, sometimes it's an outlet for that anger because it does not mean we're happy about what we deal with. We're angry that we can't stop it. We're angry at ourselves because we have this thing planned and all of a sudden we can't go. And sometimes the people we're planning to go with get angry because they know again. And I'm sure that's something you've all heard. You've had those friends, you've planned stuff, even if it's been planned for months. And then you have a flare and you're stuck in bed. And these people don't always understand. They try, at least most of them. Some don't. And if that's the case, then sometimes that's one friend you don't need. How often have you pushed yourself to the point where you know you needed to get something done and you did it and then ended up in bed for the next week? You do it just to prove you can. That's something that denial and anger push because you're denying the fact that it is beyond your capability at that point in time. And you're angry because when you do it, the expected consequences happen. You're angry at the illness. You're angry at your body. But most of all, you're angry at yourself because you didn't listen. No matter what, you've always got to remember one very important fact. You're just human, and it's okay. Every bit of these stages of grief that I'm still going through is just to prove how human you are, and you have the right to do that. No matter how you look at it, stress equals pain, and a lot of these stages increase stress. They increase the fatigue, they increase the fibrofog, all of it. And it's a matter of learning how to deal with them in a positive manner and continue moving forward. The danger is not actually the anger. The danger is in allowing that to become the world you live in. And each of these stages all apply to that. When we live in one of the stages and we continue to live in it, we don't learn from our mistakes, and it only increases our problems. The third stage of grief is called bargaining. It's just like if someone you love goes into the hospital, you're praying to God saying, if you'll just let them live, if you'll just let them get better, I'll do this or I'll do that. We do this with ourselves. If I just can get through this day, I will, all of this. And you're saying, if I can just do this, I'll give you this. But the question is, what are you trading? Because you generally can make a bargain, but the fact is that doesn't mean you can fulfill it. All it's doing is building up a false expectation within yourself that, oh, I can do this. And normally the bargain tends to be much further beyond your reach than you want to acknowledge. However, I do want to reiterate, seeking treatment and seeking help is not bargaining. It is coping. It is proving that you have the ability to ask for help. It's a matter of strength. It's not a weakness. The other problem is that every time you feel you failed in these bargains, you just build up more of a sense of failure, of worthlessness, because you can't reach that goal, at least not in the way you were thinking. Sometimes the goals are reachable over time and over consistent work in very small chunks. But when it comes to bargaining, most of the time, none of that's taken into effect. It's like that bargain that sometimes people say, oh God, I'm praying for my family member. If you heal them, I will go to church every Sunday for the rest of my life. And you don't even know how long that's going to be. And that's a lot of what people think of when they do bargaining. But what they generally are asking is something that's out of our control. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But the times it doesn't is a sense of failure. And that leads into stage 4, which is depression. Depression is described as sadness, heaviness, withdrawal, and so many different aspects to it. But that doesn't really look at the things that cause it. One of the very big facts of fibromyalgia is the constant fatigue, the constant pain. It's going to cause depression no matter what, because your body can only handle so much. You're only human. And as depth of your losses, because of the body changes and everything else, that depression increases. Because you constantly feel like you're fighting against a battle you can't win. because you're using a different definition of win than is actually conducive to dealing with your body. We're using the definition that comes from culture, our perfectionism, but that does not apply. It's not that we're failing. The fact is our body is so overloaded that it's difficult not to fall into depression. And then when you add on the fact that you've got so many changes in your life due to your illness, whether it be family, friends, loss of identity, loss of work, it drives you down because we are social creatures at nature, most of us. I won't lie, some people are solitary. I know I'm fairly solitary. But you still need at least some people in your life. And losing that also drives you even further down into depression. It feeds on the lack of access. It feeds on the pain. It feeds on all of the things your body's going through. And this is not me saying fibro is on your head. It's not. This is a completely different subject. And yet people look at any type of psychology and they won't think that's, oh, that just means they're saying it's all in your head. It's not real. And that's not the way it is. The fact is it's called a comorbidity, um, which is basically something that is attached to the illness. Similar comorbidities is weight, diabetes, CFS or chronic fatigue syndrome. There's all kinds of different illnesses that can be considered a comorbidity with fibromyalgia. And as time goes by, those tend to grow because we are sedentary. And so it does affect our body. For a long time, I did not leave my house unless that food was involved or doctor's appointments were involved. I barely saw family. I barely did anything. I was known as the ghost of my subdivision because they didn't see me very often. And that was when I was still in the massive stage of grief. And it's cyclic. It really is. It constantly is something you go through. It comes down to sometimes, are you avoiding a flare or are you avoiding your life? The thought of constant hopelessness, the thought of self-harm, of unaliving yourself, the inability to function, they do deserve professional support. And it's not a denial of your illness if you do seek it. It's actually being extremely smart. If you can find someone who can listen, it can help you cope with what you're doing. I've been on and off counseling for most of my life, and it's got me through most things. And it's ultimately why I decided to go and get, with my fascination, I got a psychology degree. Not because I'm denying the illness, but because I understand that there's more beyond the illness. No one deserves to go through what we do alone. No one. I wouldn't wish my illness on a single person in this world, past, present, or future, because nobody deserves it. And yet there's many of us who have it. And we've got to deal with that. The final stage, acceptance. And that's where I sit most of the time. But it took me a long time to get there. Acceptance is about recognizing exactly what's going on with your body and not allowing it to overcome everything you want to deal with. It's about making decisions based on what your body can actually handle. It's about knowing when and when not to ask for help, and knowing that there are times when you just can't do what you want to do. What does acceptance look like for you? Is it asking for help, using a mobility aid, changing your plans, or recognizing when your body has reached its limit? That's probably the biggest word I use with just about everything because I've had to learn that the hard way. The use of things like a blue badge or a disability placard, things like using mobility aids, canes, scooters, asking for help for things you can't do, such as cleaning, choosing your activities based on cost, both monetary as well as physically and emotionally. It also does not mean you're going to be pain free, but you can get it to a stage where it's tolerable. But the thing about acceptance, it does not mean you're not going to go through the stages again. It definitely is a constant circle you deal with. And the more you deal with it, the faster you get to the acceptance again. Generally, my goal in life is to keep myself at a tolerable level, which is about a 3 or a 4. That is just below that threshold that I actually don't really seriously notice it. I must admit, there are people around me who are empathic, who have felt it. And I've actually had my nephew look at me and says, "Do you feel like this all the time?" And I thought I was having one of my good days because I was under that tolerable level. But for him, he just he couldn't handle it. And in that is a strength that most people don't understand. I must admit I felt bad because I was leaking, because I don't really want anybody to feel the pain I go with. But sometimes you can't help it. But I will say this, tolerable is personal. Each and every single one of us has where we can handle it. We all have that baseline. Some want to feel no pain. That's all well and good. And that'd be nice. Some want no flare days. Okay, that's nice. But the minute you have one, that starts the cycle over again. It means that everything you do is all of a sudden going to be like, oh my God, I failed. And that in itself is really part of the problem. Through acceptance, what it's done, it's helped me stop using so much of my energy reserves being angry at myself, being angry at my body. And it stopped me from using so much of my energy fighting my illness. When you look at each of these stages, none of it is something you're never going to go through again. Every single time something changes, you're going to go through it again. Even if it's not about your illness, you lose a family member, you lose a house, you get a house. All of these changes in your life, they do affect the stages of grief. Heck, if you even lose a pet that you've had for a long time, it all makes changes in your body. It changes your mindset and it starts the cycle over again. It may even be something as simple as a fall, especially if you do it out in public. Because God knows I've had falls where I've 1 minute been standing at a restaurant counter ordering something or paying my bill. Next thing I know it, I'm on the ground. Luckily, I was in a restaurant that everybody knew me, so they didn't come up to try and embarrass me by trying to help me get up because they understood that it was going to take me a minute. Unfortunately, when I have those types of falls, I have no control over my legs for a while. And frankly, I know you understand this. It's embarrassing as all get out. Something like that starts the cycle over again because you're angry at yourself because all of a sudden you're not doing something that's that simple. We're taught to walk when we're a child, and sometimes our body says no. However, I will say this, Just because you go back to one stage does not mean you got to go through the entire cycle. You may skip. You go straight from denial to acceptance. Sometimes it'll be anger to back to denial and then back to acceptance. It doesn't mean you return to being how you are when you first started the journey. It just means you understand better what you're going through. Acceptance doesn't mean you're never going to be angry again. You're allowed to hate the illness. God knows I do. You're allowed to hate your body sometimes. I mean, one of my favorite jokes is, well, frankly, if I had a wish, the first thing I would wish for wouldn't be money, wouldn't be a long life. It would be not to have fibro. It's just one of those things that acceptance makes it easier, but it doesn't make it simple. The returning to the grief stages does not stall progress. In fact, it enforces it. Because each time you go to one of these stages, the more practice you get at bringing yourself out of it, the faster it happens. It's to the point now where every single time I start wanting to yell and throw things, and I come out of it quite quickly because of practice and because of knowledge. It's all about remembering that humanity is a gift we're given. What we're not given is certainty. We're not given the standard that so many try and say we're going to have. I mean, heck, even something simple as burnout. Doctors, nurses, the empathics, the first responders. Do you know how many of them deal with similar issues of the stages of grief? And that's one of the reasons they burn out. Because they either get so tired and so stressed that they can function, or they get cynical. And I don't know which is worse. Is there any one particular stage that you feel represents you the most, or the one you spend the most time in? What tends to bring you back to it? Another question is, what helps you get yourself out of it? As much as I would love to tell you that once you go through it, you understand it, you'll be able to prevent yourself from going through it again. That's not reality, and that's not what I teach. I want you to understand that being human is okay. Having fibro is okay. What is important is how you deal with it and how you learn to cope with it. And that is probably one of the hardest things to do. And it's one of the reasons why acceptance is so important. When you get stuck in one of these stages, it prevents you from going forward. Not the next episode, but I do intend on coming back and discussing each of these stages individually, because this is something that is extremely important. It is also something that lectures in psychology classes can go on for weeks because it's a very complex topic. And I don't want to bore you with a long lecture. So I'm probably going to build a playlist around the stages of grief. So if you're interested in that, please let me know. Before we talk about preparing for a doctor's appointment, there is something important we need to discuss. Cultural Stoicism. Many of us have been taught to push through, stay quiet, and downplay what we are experiencing. But with fibromyalgia, that can make it harder for other people, including doctors, to understand how much help we actually need. In the next video, I want to talk about Stoicism, self-advocacy, and what can happen when we stop speaking honestly about our symptoms. So if that helps you, feel free to stick around. I know how isolating fibromyalgia can feel, so I have started a Discord where my hope is that people can come, talk, share experiences, and just feel less alone. I'll leave a link to that below. And if you'd rather reach out privately, I am including my email as well. These videos are written from my own personal experiences. They are not meant as a medical diagnosis. They're not meant as medical advice. I'm just trying to share ways that I've learned to deal with the illness from over 3 decades of experience.